Right, today I'm going to something I've been talking quite a lot recently since I got back from Japan especially. I'm going to show you a couple of fish I've been raising in this pond that are now turning towards or are at Sansai, so 3 years old but technically 2.5 if you're counting it in months. The whole point of what I'm wanting to dictate here, we're looking at Showa today especially, so we can start working through a few different varieties, but I've got a bee in my bonnet at the minute about teaching you guys the best way to maximise your budget no matter what level the budget's at, because this is more of a mindset thing and learning about what koi you can do so you don't overlook potential gems that you can pick up for a bargain long term. And this is the sort of stuff I've had to learn over the years, where you've got to have a longer term picture in your head for a koi, especially Showa, because there's so much change to be had. So I'm going to show you the fish as I had them at Tosai. I'm going to pop the fish in the bowl today, only pond side because these are on the food at the minute. I don't normally like netting them up, but you will see it. The water's not the best, but you'll get the gist of where we're heading and where these fish are heading as well. And even at Sansai now, 2.5 years old, these fish are not done. There's still 2 or 3 years of development and growth to be had before they really hit their peak. I think that's the first place to start with all this. There's too much short-termism goes on and not enough time to let things materialise and develop. Koi are a long-term creature. The best fish are not just the best fish from day one. They have the best qualities, but in regards to pattern, where most people focus, a lot of them aren't there, especially with Showa. And some qualities, especially with Sumi, it takes a long time for that quality to actually materialise and come to its best. In the case of Dainichi, which are the two koi we're looking at today, that can be 5, 6, 7 years before that fish eventually gets there. So yeah, let's probably have a start. We'll go fish by fish here anyway, but I'm going to start with this one. So this one is from the Super Monster line. Say I got it at 27 cm. Now, all I was looking at here, first of all, you'll probably know what I'm going to say, is the body. I was looking here at this huge head setup, massively nice, broad, long head, wide mouth, and then with Tosai in particular, it's important you don't want too much body. What you need is a good structure. The body will come. Body's just fat and muscle. It takes time to build it, defend it, and you can manipulate it as well. Bone structure you can't manipulate, and in the bone structure what we're looking at is the head. Here we're looking at then the distance from the back of the head to the spine as well. Hard to see on the pictures, but in real life we're looking at the thickness of that spine running through there as well. We're looking for a nice bit of distance there and a thick set spine as well. Next thing, I'm looking at the body line itself. Pec fins I look at and the proportions of them, because they can be an indicator. You can see here they're well proportioned. But this is the next important thing. We're looking at the line that runs all the way from the mouth here, down the side of the fish into the peduncle. The peduncle is the area at the tail. Again, we need a decent bit of thickness there, but not too thick. That's a mistake that people can make. If it's too thick here at the peduncle at this point, what that can indicate is either a potential deformity, a body shortness, or a fish that structurally might not be able to grow all that much, because again, this is flesh here, so that's going to become thicker and fill out over time. So what I want in this line is a nice curve down into that peduncle. This region here, about 2/3 of the way down, you don't want any nasty nips or bulges. That you've got to pay attention to, because that's going to indicate that the body line is not going to cut it and work properly. So in the case of this fish, then overall in the body shape, what I want to see is not too much body mass at the minute. What I want to see is this sort of triangular shape, as I call it. You can see roughly here from the peduncle, we're running out, obviously minding the head. We've got a nice sort of narrow triangle running off, and even if it work it that way, that's what I'm looking for. That's the perfect kind of shape. Again, if there's too much volume too young, it's an indicator that that fish might not actually grow all that well moving forwards. So first of all, that's what we're looking at in the body, and knowing that with this lineage, male or female, that bone structure, you're going to get good growth. There's no doubt about that. And as I say, knowing the super monster lineage, it's important to know details about the bloodline. We know Dainichi fish in general grow. The Super Monster is an evolution of the Dainichi line, where Momotaro Mako Showa was crossed in, so we can get a bit more growth on them. Next thing we're going to look at then is the skin quality. Obviously this is an area that can be quite confusing. With this fish, again, I mean, there's no real doubts about the skin quality. You could see it on the picture, it's glowing. In young fish, what you don't need to be looking for too much, it can be normal that the head gets a bit yellow. No issues with that. Generally what needs to happen is the skin needs to thicken in order for the whiteness of the head to come in future. Beni intensity, as in the hue, doesn't need to be popping red. It is in this case, that's a typical Dainichi trait. But what I'm mainly focused on here are the real skin quality elements of the Kiwa and the Sashi. So again, if we have a look, Kiwa being the back edge of the colour, so where red meets white there. We want a nice defined edge, but again, doesn't have to be perfect at this age. We can see a bit further back was actually a bit of Marizome Kiwa forming where it follows the shape of the scale. And then the Sashi, this is the important part, especially in a sparse pattern like this. I need some indicator of Beni stability. If we see on this step here, we've got the pink edge in front, that's the Sashi area. And what we're doing there is that's an indicator that there's colour in the deeper layer of skin. That's the elastic layer that can stretch as the fish grows. So it tells us there's some thickness there to basically stretch the colour as it grows. So I was happy with all of that criteria. I think the bit now where this fish starts getting overlooked is the pattern. And this is where, for me, the mindset change needs to come in, because the pattern is an evolution. All I saw here was this nice distribution of Beni across the body, and I saw some signs of Sumi. You can see the blue-grey areas of skin, I can see it on the head as well. Not worried about it really being in the pec fins at this point. That's enough at that point. I'm satisfied that's a fish that's got the potential to do something, and I'm looking at no more than that. I have a feeling from what I've seen over the years is people are trying to look too much into a Tosai at this young age, and we don't know. I know from the lineage, especially the Super Monster subset of Dainichi, the Sumi is very reliable and very quick to come up typically. And I just knew there was going to be vast change, but I'm not going to lie, I didn't know the full extent of it with that fish. All I know is there's a nice Beni pattern there, there's quality in the skin and the body, the rest we need to give it time. And I picked this fish up for a fair price compared with the others. I think the reason being is everybody's overlooking it and looking for too much at this point. I mean, it was not even a full 12 months old at the time of purchasing. It's such a long, long way to go. So yeah, that's it, got it growing, and I think it's probably now time to get this one in the bowl and see where we've got to, just so you can see the evolution now at this point as well. So yeah, let's have a look. Right, so here we have it. You can see there the fish at Tosai, and now Sansai. So just sort of ignore elements of the condition at the minute. This is something as well you need to be mindful of. If you was looking at this fish now as a prospective purchase, it's not in the best condition. As in elements of the skin, we're still in the growing period at the minute. The white skin's not at the best because they're being pumped hard with food, and colour food in particular. It's just not a time where conditioning, even the sort of lustre on the Sumi is not at its best either. Again, it's not a conditioning period, it's a growing period. So you do have to bear these in mind. That white skin and Sumi condition can be brought back up to its best within a matter of probably 6 to 8 weeks, no doubt. So, and they are at the real peak of the growing at the minute, really trying to push the body hard. So it is a male fish. We can just sort of see that in the body a little bit. It's bulking nicely at the minute, and more bulk is coming with age, because we can see that bone structure, how it's sort of come alive and really started filling out from that Tosai. But what you can see is the structure hasn't changed. It's still got that big head. It's still got that slight taper. Everything in that aspect is the same because the bone structure never changes. What has changed is the body's filled out with more muscle in this case. So that's all happened, but obviously the big bit to pay attention to here now is that sumi pattern and how everything's come together. There we can see the head. I mean, the head pattern is absolutely stunning now. If we have a look at that a bit closer, and look at the way that the sumi works with the beni. There's more happening here as well at the minute. There's more happening with all this sumi. You can see it's started, there's areas where it's breaking the surface, where it wasn't as Tosai, and areas where it is thickening more as well. But just look at all that, you know, you wasn't really seeing the full extent of that happening in the Tosai. We've also got other elements, you know, that will make a big difference to this visually. There's a small sumi here which is forming from under, from below the lateral line, and the sumi here at the peduncle which will eventually surface as well and visually completely change all that. That's the only aspects that I think will ever make people question that fish in the first place. And if you're wanting a finished article at that age, it's likely not a fish that long term is going to be all that. And the issue I see with that is I don't see that as being good value for money. What you want is a fish like this that now at 3 years old is still not at its best. There's still a lot more I can extract from the body. Obviously it's in here competing with a lot of fish really. It's not a lightly stocked pond. I think there's about 22 fish, some ranging up to 70 centimetres. This one's probably circa around 63, I should imagine, looking at it. But a super piece. The winter's going to be very kind to it. Like I say, when we get this bulking finished, I think we're probably going to push that to about 65 by the end of the growing season, and get a fair bit more mass on it as well. We can see there's a lot more to come. We can hopefully pick up there the backbone here, very prominent. You know, there's a lot of power left in there yet. And basically what needs to happen is, because that's so prominent at the moment, we just need to fill the muscle and the flesh out around the side of it until it becomes less prominent eventually. And yeah, say even the Motogoro now in the fins, you can see it went from basically seeing nothing to beautiful Motogoro, really well balanced in both fins as well. So massive transformation on that one, and now a fish that will no doubt be admired by all. Like I say, not looking its best at the moment, but we'll probably have a quick look at that after the conditioning period and the end of the growing period, and you'll see how it differs when we get that shine back on the skin and everything there. So yeah, you've got to have an open mind with those young fish, no doubt about it. And if I had tried to be too specific at that point, I wouldn't have got this fish. So, and now look at it, that's a fish I'm sure most would absolutely dream of having in their collection. And like I say, importantly, still not finished. There's still a long way to go with that. So yeah, there we have it, and on to the next one. Right, next fish. This is actually currently one of my favourite Dainichi fish that I've got. It's not, still not the finished article yet, but yeah, quite phenomenal when you get to see this. And I've actually seen it from last winter, what it did with the sumi, and some of that sumi has regressed over the summer in the heat, which is normal. But again, here we have it, another super monster fish. So again, from what I just mentioned before, we've got the sumi that does progress rapidly and pretty quickly. So this is Tosai. What I'm seeing, again, let's start on that body. I think from the last explanation, don't need to say too much more, other than what you can probably see if I get the two side by side, is a difference in the structure, where this one does have a little bit more width and power in the body, which has translated now in the bigger fish as well. But yeah, structurally, got the head going on again. You've got the curve into the peduncle. It's got a thicker set peduncle, this one as well, which also relates to that, you know, just slight more body width and a bit more height that it's got as well. Skin, again, you can see all them elements to it. Lovely kiwa on the back, nice sort of leveled out sashi throughout it. And again, it comes straight back to the pattern, you know, probably one that's going to get overlooked because of that. But all I'm seeing there is all those quality elements, knowing that something drastic is going to happen with the sumi anyway. and we can see it sat under the skin in a couple of these areas and all around. And to be honest with you, what has ended up happening with this fish even surprised me a little bit. The head pattern, we can see signs of it again, knowing something's going to happen. It was 23 cm at the time, and yeah, to be honest, I think we'll jump straight into having a look at this one and seeing where it's got to, because you're going to be impressed. So again, there we have it. Again, it is a male fish, but you can see the difference in body power now between this and the last one, and you can see there that difference between the two Tosai from the pictures. Again, as we look, nothing's changing the structure. See, it's all there, it's following the same kind of body line traits. It's just the girth, the mass and everything is filled out on it, which is the point. You know, it happens with all of them, but the structure, you never change. If you're looking at an element of that structure and you think, oh, you know, I hope that gets, you know, improves in future, it won't. The structure never changes. It's only the body elements, and like I say, they can be manipulated. So the Sum is radically transformed, just this whole fish. And what was actually happening by the back end of last year, the Motogoro was showing in the fins, and the memoir would actually form the kind of a black X on the head, and it looked absolutely insane. But this is a super high quality fish. We can actually see the Motogoro in the base of the fin starting to come up again, look. And over this winter, this will all solidify, drastically change. When that water temperature drops down from the 24 it's at the minute, we'll get a big change there. But you can see the Sum is actually even come and completely taken over the Benny on that side as well, which has really transformed the pattern. But you know, even looking at that, might have been wondering, you know, how that pattern was going to balance up, what was going to happen. See, this side, even you couldn't even really see the Sumi that has developed in the way it has, or on the front of that Dan of Benny there. Just insane. Even at the back of the pattern here, this window of Shiroji, I think this is another thing people mistake, is that when we actually look closely on here, there is that white gap just there. Now this type of Sumi, when you see it displayed like that, it'll never actually alter, but what tends to happen is obviously you get some contraction in the Sumi and a bit of stretching out as everything grows. So where you might have been looking at that thinking everything's going to get a bit too dark, there's actually a pocket of Shiroji opened up there properly. And I mean, this fish is top draw, and it's getting the size now. Again, I'll say we're probably circa around 63 to 65. I certainly anticipate it reaching 65 if it's not already. We can see from the bowl, the spine, again, the body height is a lot more on this fish. And these are elements that, to be honest with you, will massively bump up the price of the fish, certainly from a Japanese perspective. You can see the Benny quality, absolutely top drawer on this one, and there's still a lot more pigment loaded up in them scales to come out. Just amazing, and still not close to being at its best. It's going to look very different come the end of the year when the season finishes. We're going to get even more body on it, and that's just going to keep coming over the next couple of years with this fish. And again, just to see there, look, serious quality. Even now you can get more of a perspective of the size of the head, that height behind the head as well. But yeah, there we have it. There's some pointers there I hope you can take some useful tips away from, but the main thing I want you to get across is possibly you need to unlearn some of the bad habits or bad things you've been taught in too much obsession about a fish being finished too quickly. Because all that's going to lead you to do is generally those fish that are more finished, if they're of a very high quality, they're going to be, you know, very worthy for koi show fish in Japan. The tax on the top of them is unbelievable, because so few are like that at a young age. And I've seen it myself. You know, I've been after these fish. I've been trying to compete to get them. There's serious price levels for them, and you know, when you've got budget restraints, as a lot of us do have, you want to get the best and the best long-term prospects. So if you can just open your mind up a little bit more to looking at koi as longer-term projects, you know, they're going to live for a long time. So why do you want the quality to be deteriorating quickly? And that's another thing, you know, in the young fish, if it's more finished but it's not got the quality, that's likely a fish that's not going to make it past 2 or 3 years with all the colour intact and still looking good. and at that point it's a fish that's going to be in your pond. You might want to move on, probably what you'd call a waste of money, and that's money that could have been put towards something of a better quality and a higher ilk. So I hope that's come across, and I hope you're obviously following the gist of what I'm saying. Any questions, feel free to pop them in the description or the comments below, and yeah, hit that subscribe button as well to help the channel grow and reach as many people as we can. Thanks for watching.